Hello, everybody. My name is Tom Hajdu. I'm the director of the Sia Furler Institute. First of all, I'd like to honor the Garner people, past, present, and future. Creative Revolutionaries is an ongoing series focusing on creativity and innovation. So welcome all to the second annual Adelaide Esports Summit, where we focus on opportunities in esports. First of all, I'd like to thank AVCon, the PR marketing team at Adelaide University, Dustin, for his excellent help, Seb Tomchuk, and our intern, Jeremy, and also thank you to the excellent panel for coming, and thank you all for your attendance here as well as streaming. So without further ado, I will hand the mic over to Dustin.
Brilliant. Howdy everyone. How's everyone feeling on this wet and rainy Adelaide day?
Excellent.
Okay guys, so I'm just going to let you know we have an absolute truckload of people watching online through the live stream, so I'm going to need it really loud on the count of three. How are we all feeling on this Adelaide rainy day? We're feeling great! That's a spirit. Brilliant. So who was here last year for the very first eSport Info Summit? Brilliant. Last year we tried to angle it to make sure that everyone could get an introduction to what eSport was, the opportunities it presented, and how to get in on that with some secret hints and tips. What we're doing this year is stage 2. Stage 2, we're going to introduce you to a world of your in esports. We're going to give you a real peek behind the curtain, and we're going to tell you some stories that literally you will not hear outside of this eSports Summit. So our goal here is to have you learn something you wouldn't learn anywhere else, and hopefully inspire you to give it a go yourself. So I'm just going to quickly introduce our speakers. We have the CEO of the Adelaide Crows and the owner of Team Legacy. We have Nigel Smart. We have a man who takes on the thankless task of running AVCon's gaming and esports tournaments. We have Misha. We have one of the content creators for Team Legacy and also last year's panelist. We have Alisheria. And we have Catroulette, who has some of the most unique experiences in esports you're probably going to hear tonight. So if you thought this is going to be a big fluff piece, she's going to let you in on some secrets. But what we're going to do now is, who's aware of the film-making team called Fury Fingers in Adelaide? We got some hands up. We know what's going on. So Fury Fingers recently teamed up with Screen Australia, YouTube, and the SAFC, the South Australian Film Corporation, to put together a series of stories. Well, one story. It goes on YouTube tomorrow, and it's all about a game developer and a relationship with a cosplayer, all taking place in the world of esports. So we're going to quickly show you that trailer to show you what Adelaide is up to.
You've been gaming with him a lot lately. Starting to think you've got yourself a new game of Hal.
So she cosplays, huh? She just seems so normal, but she's into cool shit.
I don't know, he's just really fun to play with. You know, I feel like I can just be myself. Is he friends with Bree or BB?
Sounds too good to be true. Yeah. You sure she's not a dude, right?
Coming to Australia.
What?
I got the gig as a cosplay ambassador, so I'll be following the whole Supernova sector around the country.
That's awesome. Be Rizzy?
Fuck you, Elliot.
Wait, breathe!
Oh my god!
So yeah, check it out tomorrow on YouTube. Just search for Love Guns and Level Ups or Fury Fingers on YouTube to check out and see what your fellow Adelaideans are getting up to in the world of esports and content creation. And speaking of esports and content creation, that is a great segue to bring you all to season 2, the sequel, Nigel Smart.
Hello, everyone. Is this where you want a little update?
We can we just update them from your perspective, where is the world of esports at? What has changed in a year? And your thinking on the whole situation.
Yeah, it's probably COVID in a bit of a way is an opportunity for esports, and there's some negativity around it as well. Currently, Legacy, our League of Legends team, is in China. They're in isolation at the moment for the next 14 days prior to the World Championships, which start on the 25th. It's a bubble. They've created a bubble in China to have an event, and it's probably one of the few esports lands that is occurring around the world, but they've done it in really unique circumstances. So fingers crossed the team goes really well. It's been a really challenging one. Like, we're an AFL club, a sports team, and all sporting clubs around the world have taken a hit through COVID. We've had to make staff redundant. Our revenue streams going forward are uncertain, and it's a really challenging time for sport. And it's just not us; it's sports teams around the world, whether they're basketball, NFL. They're all having to make adjustments because audiences aren't able, or mass gatherings aren't able to happen. So I think from an esports perspective, the yin and yang of that is digital audience, YouTube or Twitch audiences are actually increasing. So from a content point of view, it's you're getting a lot of whether viewers here in Australia, they're consuming more content, not necessarily from an engagement point of view, the actual watch time, it might be decreasing, but they're just doing more of it. So you're finding that across the world, and at the end of the day, that's a great thing for content creators. It's terrific for esports franchises or teams in the gaming genre, because there's more content and there's more ability to monetize that content. So COVID has been a really nasty thing for a lot of industry, but at the same time for the esports industry, I think you've seen it adapt. Sure, LAN events, I think ESL Cologne was cancelled, so the LAN events are getting cancelled, but those events are taking shape in different forms in terms of online events, and even the OPL, the Oceanic Pro League here, the League of Legends, the LAN studio environment where the teams play was shut down, but the events still occurred online. They still competed, and they still had viewership. And I had a conference call with Riot just prior to this meeting, and they've had growth in their viewership metrics for League of Legends this year in local audience. So it's kind of like viewership is up, events are down, and teams' audiences seem to be growing continually for esports.
That's some pretty good news. In the world of COVID, to know that people are realizing there are opportunities to be had here, which is what esport is all about. If you are restricted from doing one thing, find a way to get over the obstacle, and that's where esports really comes into it. Thank you, Nigel. Now, I did mention at the top that we're not going to be fluff and happiness about esports. We're going to give you what's going on and how is it going on and what you need to know to be able to work in that environment. Which brings us now to Misha. who has, in the enthusiasm wanting to let you know what's going down in the world of esports, he has done some heavy research. So strap yourself in, guys. It's time for Misha.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Misha, as Dustin just said. So a bit of background on who I am. I'm mostly a tournament organizer, working with mostly AVCon. I've been the deputy games coordinator from 2016 to 2018, and also helping out with tournaments the year prior. And I've always been helping out with the esports scene, or the esports, stage. And in one way or another, I've been involved either just through actually running the tournament myself, or through working with the people who will organize it, such as Cybergamer. I wasn't there for AEL, but working with net cafes and so forth. And I've also been working with UniSA and Uni of Adelaide to help out in getting their tournaments running as well. And in the past, I've also played a bit of games myself, Halo 3, CSGO, and Dirty Bomb, if anyone remembers that game. And what I'm about to say is mostly just advice specifically for teens and for parents of teens who want to get into esports. So what I'm about to say might be a little bit obvious for people, but I think it's some things that I think are important to know. Some sort of, I guess, a bit of harsh reality into what's going on. But I'll start with a question, actually, that was asked at the last panel, where someone was asking me, how do I convince my parents that esports are legit, that it's something that's worthwhile putting time into to turn into a skill set? And I sort of kept on thinking about that. Of course, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. But I was thinking about the term e-sport. It's just electronic sport. What about it really is just sporty? What do we even consider sports to begin with at all? And I thought that was a question that we should all ask ourselves. So I'm going to ask myself, the panel as well, and everyone in the crowd to sort of join in. I'm going to say some sports, and I want people to put their hand up if they agree that that is actually a sport. So for example, Aussie rules footy. I reckon that's a sport. Cool. So next one is basketball, table tennis, golf, boxing, skateboarding, artistic swimming, snooker or pool, like 8-ball stuff, I think that, chess. See? And there's no right or wrong answer there. Clearly there is some kind of inconsistency between what we actually consider a sport. So I had a look at some dictionaries, actually. Wiktionary says, any activity that uses physical exertion or skills competitively under a set of rules that is not based on aesthetics. Not based on aesthetics. So artistic swimming, rhythmic gymnastics, outside of that. Something done for fun, regardless of its design or intended purpose, such as Joe was banned from getting legal help. He seemed to view lawsuits as a sport. So you could turn anything into a sport from that definition. I can turn getting good grades into school as a sport. And then the Merriam-Webster dictionary for America, a source of diversion or recreation. So I guess you would believe that if you think sports are for plebs, I guess. Physical activity engaged in for pleasure / a particular activity, such as an athletic game, so engaged in. Okay, whatever. They specifically, in that definition, said athletic means you have to exert yourself. So I personally would say that something like weightlifting isn't a sport because it's a athletic competition. There's not much really strategy outside of that. And then Oxford definition is behind a paywall. So thank you, bourgeoisie academics. Thank you for Adelaide, by the way, for hosting us here. But I think another big reality to understand is businesses that exist to make money. It's obvious, but needs to be said. For example, some organizations are really loyal to their players and keep them on for a long time. Virtuous Pro in CSGO does that. So does Na'Vi in some of their teams. But then Cloud9 CSGO just has a roster change every semester. So Evil Geniuses, a North American organization, in 2015 won the Dota 2 International, which is basically their equivalent of World Cup. They've won the big one. And then within the same month, they kicked out one of the players against that player's will because that's what the majority of the team wanted, even though they just won their World Cup. So it's not to say that that's happening everywhere, but that is a reality. That is a situation that you could find yourself in, where the team you're with just might prefer someone else. And that's real in any industry, really. And another thing I want to talk about is something that actually has happened in Australia. There's one particular esports organization, Tainted Minds, with their League of Legends team in 2017. You know. They had some players live together in a house together, and that's, you know, for practice, that's standard esports stuff. I remember Ninjas in Pajamas in like 2011 showed off their esports gaming house in Sweden. And apparently they weren't promised what was in the contract, and that included gaming PCs, there weren't any curtains, inadequate internet, no air conditioning, the house was completely dirty, often breaking hot water, faulty electrical circuits. Basically, it was not livable, basically, by any stretch of the imagination. And eventually, the players had to step in because there was just poor communication between the players, the actual team manager, and Riot. And then eventually, nothing was really resolved after a month. And after being delayed for 2 weeks for remediation from Riot to check out, see that everything is actually fine, Tainted Minds eventually got hit with a $7,000 fine, and that's even less than what all the gaming PCs would even cost. And then there was no ban, no apology, and basically they went on from there totally fine, scot-free basically. So that's one realistic thing that has happened in Australia. So I would personally, if I had a kid, for example, and they were going into esports, I would almost treat it like if they were going into some acting gig. You know, like in any industry, there are bad actors, and that unfortunately includes esports. But by having your own influencer sort of persona, which is a big difference between esports and traditional athletic sports, is that you are representing your brand way more, because there are way less people in one team for League of Legends than there is in a whole footy team. And it's a way, way, way younger brand. And so if you're a personal influencer, like you have your own stuff that you've made up before even joining a team, you have leverage over your employer to get a better deal. But at the same time, that can also be exploited because FaZe Clan and Tfue had some sort of Fortnite sort of, everyone was suing each other basically over who owes what money from what social media and so forth. And another point as well is that the gaming companies themselves might not necessarily actually care about esports or the integrity of who's winning, because, for example, EA teamed up with some American university researchers, and they might rig games, allegedly, in Apex Legends in order to get you to be playing for longer and not necessarily playing against people who are reasonably skilled with you, because they use metrics to determine how long you're playing and how likely you are to spend money on that. So that's completely allegedly if they're using it in Apex Legends, but that is a patent that they've publicly put out in the US. And another thing as well is copyright strikes, bans, demonetization from Twitch and YouTube. You are completely at their mercy. Even Twitch now has been recently getting some controversy because they're forcing advertisements on Twitch streamers apparently. So they've been getting a lot of flack for that, and you basically are just at the mercy, as I said, because it's their platform, it's their private platform, and they can do whatever they want. I know I'm talking a lot, so I'm sorry. I will say some last things.
That's okay. We'll be also able to jump back to once we start the questions up as well. So do you want to hit on a main point, and then we'll pop on?
Cool. All right. I have like 3 more pages, but I'll talk about one more actually that I think young people need to hear the most, because that's basically been the theme of my speech so far. So my speech is my final point for now is don't put all your eggs in one basket. Sponge, who is now a CSGO caster and analyst, was the captain of Australia's best CSGO team at the time. At the time, it was just they steamrolled everyone else. While he was captain, he was working as a part-time plumber. And he mentioned that on his personal stream. I don't believe it's documented anywhere. And Mitch Uber-Leslie, actually, an Adelaide local who's an Overwatch commentator, works for ESL. He first graduated in aeronautical engineering. And James Quinn, another Adelaide local into CSGO. Since after retiring, he's had an amazing weight loss journey. It's actually inspiring stuff. And apparently he's now working in corporate finance. So it's always worthwhile having a plan B or doing something also while you're doing esports. There's only one exception to that, and that's been Anna from Melbourne, who dropped out of high school to go to China in order to play against better players. And then he's been in a team that's won to the internationals, which is, the Dota's World Cup. And that's like the one like anomaly. And he moved country in order to be able to play against better players, because unfortunately, the fact of the matter is that Australia, in comparison to other regions, does not play nearly at the high level, and that's why you have a lot of players going to other countries in order to get better. The other one exception to that rule, again, is the Rainbow Six Siege team. Previously Mindfreak, then Fnatic. Now they've been picked up. They've been getting really good success initially, but that's basically, as far as I know, the only time that an Australian team has been playing exceptionally well on the international scene immediately. So going pro and just being good at games is completely different.
Perfect. This is what I like to see.
Should I have gone that long?
I've got some good questions for you after. You'll be going for 3 pages minimum. But what I do love about what Misha just said there is esports is not a child's game. If esports was a child's game, there wouldn't be worries about brand representation, contracts, esport teams, things like that. Esports is a legitimate industry, and it brings with it legitimate industry concerns and problems and things like that. So it's up to you as the viewer, as the audience, as the participants to always want the best for your industry. So what Misha brought up there is a great narrative to know that you're not part of a fun hobby. You're part of a fun industry. And it's up to us to participate to make sure that it's done at the utmost for the betterment of the industry itself, which a really fun side of that betterment of the industry is bringing on people with creative minds, with the innovation to think outside the box and to really want to engage with the people who want to be involved, which is a perfect segue to the journey of Alisheria, who last year was our most enthusiastic, hardcore content creator. And now, Alisheria, what's happened to you in the last year?
Yes, so since last being here, I am now actually a content creator for Legacy Esports. So, thank you. Which is has been an incredible journey for me thus far and continues to be so. But it is something that just shows with the industry outside of the esports, organizations are looking at branching out, and I definitely think Legacy has been at the forefront with not only, as Nigel mentioned, the team is over in China currently preparing for Worlds, but it started with myself and another wonderful local streamer, Artemis, and we have just a fantastic family of streamers. I get to work alongside some incredible content creators, but it is something that looking at setting yourself up, delving into content creation for the first time, there are a lot of ways. It is a very volatile almost industry. Unfortunately, I can't give you a clear cut, do XYZ, it's going to be perfect and you're going to have excellent viewership and you're going to be earning big bucks. It's just unfortunately not an industry like that. Similar to sports and esports, sometimes you need to excel and sometimes just hard work alone without using kind of a business savvy is not going to travel you to the endpoint that you want to be at. So as was mentioned, not putting your eggs all in one basket. An excellent thing to do is branching out, not just on one social media platform. So my predominant platform is Twitch. That's kind of my home in terms of content creation. But it's actually this evening I'll be delving into uploading my first YouTube video, as well as using Twitter, as using Instagram, even TikTok. I mainly with my cats, not so much gaming, but it is another social media platform that you can utilize to bring viewers to what you view as your predominant platform. And then from there, if something does happen, as again was mentioned, maybe one day I will not be streaming on Twitch. It is a platform that is a private platform. Terms of service is something that they do intentionally keep quite vague so people can't manipulate the system. So I might have, for something that was unintentional, a ban on Twitch for, say, a week. And when it is your primary income, a week can be really devastating to your budgeting and kind of planning for your next month. So by then spreading across other platforms, I can, let viewers know, say, oh, we got flagged for, it may have been accidentally I played copywritten music and I get a strike, and so I can't stream the next day because the channel has been flagged for copyright reasons. Hey guys, not streaming, resolving it, we will be back. However, you can catch me here, or just at least creating content that is still engaging with your viewers and your community. I think that it has been a year that was very unanticipated by a lot of us, 2020 as a whole, with the pandemic still happening. It has been something that I have been really glad to have a platform, and something that I always recommend is looking at it not just as a source of revenue, but a community that you're curating around you. And one of the most heartening things that I had were people coming and saying, yeah, I've been in isolation, I've been in lockdown for X amount of time. It's so good to talk to someone and feel like I'm interacting with someone outside of my little bubble that I have to stay in. So it really does show how multifaceted content creation is. It's not just one, this is what content creation is. And probably another difference in terms of the content that I create from last time I was here, you can really expand into your interests as well. So my major thing, I do is gaming, Elder Scrolls, Age of Empires, League of Legends, Teamfight Tactics, kind of extension of League of Legends. But we've also done, for subscriber goals, I made a crepost from Age of Empires out of gingerbread, which took a lot longer than I thought it was going to take, but we did it. And then that was something fantastic that people that were fans of Age of Empires, which it is a very passionate community, they can see something really unique being made in a content they like and content that they didn't expect to like. I had so many people say, I didn't think that I'd ever be watching a baking stream, but this is really interesting to me because it correlated to something that they really loved. You have so much flexibility to be able to really express yourself, and that can be grinding ranked in a game that you love. A goal that I had with TFT, I said, this season I'm going to get to platinum. Now I've committed to next season trying to get to diamond. That can be a way you express yourself. Baking, cosplay creation, just chatting is the biggest category at the moment because people want to be connecting with people. Outside of esports itself, with esports itself, we've discussed, I have a lot of people that come in and say, what do you think is going to happen? Like when we had the finals, we could talk strategies, we could talk how we thought the series was going to play out. It is your channel when you're a content creator. And it is a really fantastic industry to get into. And I would recommend being smart with it. So if you are still in school, for example, set yourself up for success. Things like business studies are really helpful. English communications, even drama. I was a drama student, and that, in terms of improv, really useful in a way that I didn't think. When I was doing drama in year 12, I didn't think, I'm going to be live streaming one day and someone's going to throw a curveball at me and this is going to set me up to be able to respond. But it has. Something I did, fortunately, business maths in school, because you know what? Taxes are a thing, even with streaming. So there are a lot of things that you can do to kind of set yourself up and really take a little bit of the worry out. And also, please don't just, if you are in a good financial spot, don't just quit and think, I'm going to stream now. I had to transition into doing that. That's kind of the big thing. There is a lot of money. There's a lot of money that can be made in the industry. But in the same, again, being a professional athlete, being an actor, being a singer, to get to that point, it does take time to kind of build a reputation, build a stream, build a community. But I am now supporting myself through live streaming. And that's last year. I wasn't 100%. I was getting a lot of support from my partner. Now I get to say that I pay all my own bills through streaming. So it does take time, but with dedication and being smart and being business savvy, you can build to that point.
Well, there you go. That was a brilliant journey. It was what South Australia has become about. South Australia, Adelaide, we are one of the most innovative states. Our green technology, our willing to try something. We have the freaking space program of Australia is in Adelaide. As an Adelaidean, as a South Australian, everyone here has a playground of innovation to try and find their own way in the world. When I look out to the crowd and look out to the live stream, I'm not looking at people who like to play games so they came here. I'm looking at the potential of hundreds and hundreds of new sole traders to help the South Australian economy. And that's the big, big move we've got here with esports in 2020. 2020 showed us that traditional thinking cannot survive. With esports, we have an opportunity to play in this innovation playground of South Australia. So when you go home and you think, you know what, when I was young, I wanted to be an astronaut. That may not happen. But also when you're young, didn't you wish that you grew up to do something that you love, you enjoy, and that people love to interact with you? What we really want to convey to you tonight is that South Australia is the state of innovation. It is the state of opportunity, because of people like you and the people here can see an opportunity to do something which they love, they're passionate about, and become a sole trader to do their own brand, to their own marketing, and make it in this world doing what they love. Which now brings us to a very unique person. This is Catroulette. She has been gaming for a very long time. She started off in the cosplay world, worked into esports, fell in love with esports, and had some opportunities which are incredibly unique out there. And she's gone on that journey and has still remained in the industry. Tell us about that.
Hello, yes, I'm Kat, or Jimmy, and I'm a cosplayer, a content creator, mostly an artist, but I believe my perspective here is mostly for what I was doing last year. So I wasn't at the summit last year because I was actually living in Sydney, working as a house manager for esports team, Chiefs Esports Club, the League of Legends team. So I was living in-house at their gaming house. And so hopefully I can offer a bit of perspective as sort of the day-to-day life and workings of an esports club and an esports player behind the scenes. I think to start that off, obviously most people would know that any job is not going to be easy. I think there is, from an outside sort of the perspective that if you have a job that you love, you never work a day in your life. But honestly, if you have a job that you love, you will work harder than you ever have in your life, but it will be more rewarding. For an esports player particularly, obviously, mostly I know the League of Legends side of it. They work incredibly long days. It really is a 7 days a week job. While I was there, it was 5 days a week of 2 scrim blocks a day, which could start at about 11 a.m. and end anywhere until 9 p.m. And then there were 2 days a week, Friday and Saturday, where they would go to the studio and they would play their games of the week against different teams. And then outside of that, and on Sundays, it really was an expectation that you would play solo queue. Like, you would grind solo queue to obviously like maintain your skills, but also like keep up to date with everything that is happening in the meta. So really, it's an incredibly demanding job. Obviously, the players who do it, they love it. But it is worth keeping in mind that it's a huge grind, and it isn't easy. On top of that, obviously, the process of getting into an esports team is a long process. It's not just enough to be the best. You have to have that commitment, and a lot of players play OCS before they make it to OPL. And even once you make it to OPL, there will be sort of, I guess, trials and tribulations that you might face. One of which being esports is still a very new industry, and it is emerging, and because of that, it's not highly regulated. And there will be people out there who will try to take advantage of new players or anyone wanting to be involved in the industry, because there is a passion behind that, that people are willing to work in conditions and for reward that is not sufficient for their labor and their time. And people know that. So there are people out there, obviously not everyone, I'm not saying you should never trust anyone, but it's definitely worth keeping in mind that there are people out there who will gladly take advantage of your passion and try to undercut what you can provide to them. So I think my biggest tip would be, if you're looking to get into esports, know your worth and always get a contract. Don't commit to anything, don't do any work, don't quit your job and move across the country unless you have in written a contract and it is all finalized. Just be very careful, make sure you know your rights, make sure you know what you're worth, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
No, that's good. This is what I'm talking about. The esport fairy tale could be yours, but you got to do it carefully. You got to plan it out. Last year we talked a lot about personal brand. What is your personal brand? How does that personal brand help a potential business? What I'm hearing now is that things are scary out there, but that also creates an opportunity. Like I was saying before, South Australia is a state of innovation. What if South Australia was the first state to properly take hold of esport and create structure and oversight to make sure that if you're looking to get into esport, well, we don't want your passion to be crushed and sucked away from you, because then South Australia has no esport industry. But if South Australia can be there to cradle and to give people a voice in esport and to help them, well, then our state could be one of the greatest states of esport in the entire world. Not next year, maybe the year after, but that's the great opportunity that we have here. And speaking of opportunity, I'm just going to ask a couple of quick questions to panelists. Nigel, speaking of opportunity, you have a team of esporters. They're in China. So you mentioned earlier, just before, that there's a secondary team supporting that team through content creation, things like that. Can you speak a little bit more about what people don't see beyond the team? What opportunities are there beyond just the people in the spotlight?
I think as gaming and esports is continually, like, it's a bigger system. It's not just about the team, it's a system. When we, and I said earlier on, when we first acquired Legacy in 2017, it was pretty much a team. I think we were running 6 teams, 7 teams back then. We had a CSGO team, we had a Rocket League team, we had a League of Legends team, we had a League of Legends Challenger team. We've fine-tuned that approach now. So we're running, the teams that we run, we want to be number 1 in Australia in. I'd love to have a CSGO team or a Rainbow Six team, but we don't. One day maybe we will. But through owning that team, it meant that we created a high school tournament platform called Meta, and even through that process, we've moved into content creation and really trying to build and understand capabilities. So we're actually becoming an entertainment and media organisation, and a more broader form of that. And I think through that process, we are starting to see the gems start to develop. Our League of Legends team had a terrific year. They'll compete in Worlds for the first time. But behind that team, and look, we could only take, I think, 6 players, coach, and Tim. So Tim, who's the head of our esports, is our almost like pseudo content guy. He's the camera guy. He's the video guy. And he's going to feed that back to the team here. we do have a team of people, very passionate. There is a fine line between playing on people's passions and actually contracting them, paying them accordingly. We have a team of, we have videography, graphics, and then there's just strategy, marketing, account management. A lot of teams fall over, or a lot of orgs fall over in terms of managing the partners that we have, like Optus. The brands that enter into esports, you have to provide them with the appropriate reporting and the returns. Many brands, if they come into a system and aren't managed properly, will just go out. So our brands, Samsung, Optus, Harvey Norman, they're invested in esports as part of a synergy of their broader organisation, but a lot of the time they're finding out how to engage with the audience and the end user as well. They're big business. They're in either selling or selling services, and they're partnered with us, and having that right account management experience is vitally important. So we have a range of people behind the scenes. Vandy, who is our stream manager, so she manages the content creators. She's not an agent, she's a manager. And there's a difference between being a manager and an agent. So, and Vandy does she's a lovely person and acts as a bit of a hub to the content creators. We have 7 content creators. There's no doubt that we'll expand that division. And that division this year was primarily about us really understanding what is a content creator? What are the metrics? What are the key? There's so much data and metrics out there, but what are the core metrics that we're trying to understand about a content creator? Is it average minute audience? Is it hours watched? Is it hours streamed? Is it hours that they haven't streamed? Is it their concurrent viewers? How many viewers are they getting at a peak time? What time are they playing? Is it a North American audience? Is it European? How many Australian audiences are watching? Are they a YouTuber? How many Twitch followers have they got? So there's reams of information, but it's kind of getting the core pieces of information and then understanding, okay, Alisheria has got her own content channel, and we're partnering with that channel, okay, to deliver value to the audience and to the stakeholders. So through that process, that's been enlightened this year, and there's no doubt that we'll expand that division going into next year. But that also paves in terms of identifying talent, working with that talent, and making the business grow in a sustainable manner. COVID's been challenging because it's kind of placed uncertainty around brands or partners or the monetization process. All organisations are going through that, including ones in gaming and esports, but it's one where we try and de-risk it as much as possible, to try and be transparent in our communication, to try and be real and provide everyone with hopefully a beneficial outcome at the end of the day.
Brilliant. So you heard it there, guys. It actually really touches on what Alisheria was talking about before, is that you want to be an esporter. That is awesome. Finish school. Do business maths. Do drama. Learn how to improv. Learn skills that will enhance your brand, because when it comes to Nigel Smart looking for people who can do videography, when it comes to people of the team looking who can do the maths involved to be a account manager, there's so many more positions outside of just being a team member. So while you start on your esport journey, just think, what do I love and how can that benefit a team? Because at the end of the day, you need to work as a team. Because being in China will be winning nothing if no one's there to film it, no one's there to capture it, because if a tree falls in a forest and no one's around to hear it, it doesn't make a sound.
But it also goes to, you talk about government and leadership positions. It also is about the education institutions. It's about universities taking a role. It's about high schools having a part to play. It's about teachers understanding the changing environment in technology and gaming, which they are starting to, but a lot don't. Teachers are doing tremendous jobs, but they have a style of teaching, and sometimes that won't include understanding about, I don't even understand League of Legends, or I don't understand Fortnite. It's understanding that young people are consuming content in different ways off different platforms. They're not watching traditional mediums. And it's for government to understand that the system of education is changing, and the education system needs to evolve with that. I was saying earlier that I spoke to all the universities about esports about 2 years ago. None of them understood it. None of them really knew what it was regarding. And it's probably, even during this time of COVID, it's probably repositioned their thinking that they have to do things slightly differently. And gaming and esports might be an opportunity to explore. And that's enlightening, okay, because it is happening overseas, and it's going to happen here in Australia, and it will happen in New Zealand, but it needs to be done in a sustainable and managed way, so people along that journey don't have high expectations and their needs aren't met. Okay, so how do we have that balance?
That is, and a great question. I'm working exactly on that. Misha, you've just entered your first year of university, and in this glorious future world we've looked at, you've actually taken Esports 101 in your first year of university. What would you want to be one of the core topics in that course in your first year of university about esports? Because we talked a lot about, and Jimmy touched on it before, like knowing your worth, knowing contract, but at the same time you need to be able to work as a team and this and that. So you've just been put in charge of designing the course of Esports 101. What would be your just one topic, what is your most important topic you'd want someone to learn in Esports 101 first year university?
It's actually a very good question.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. So I'm not a sporty person, clearly, but I mean that in that I don't play sports, and I also don't watch sports. I personally, it's just not for me. It's nothing against it. It's just not for me. I'm more of a watching MMA person. And so basically, from what I understand in sports and in esports, and speaking to players, top level players that I've spoken to in tournaments that I've run myself, and just from interviews and watching streams and so forth, and seeing how they respond. My first thing that I would say in how to succeed in esports is mostly sports psychology. That would basically mirror real, quote unquote, traditional sports psychology, because to become competitive and at the top of your game, I would imagine it just has a lot to do with becoming the best at soccer or football, the same team dynamics, the same personal development, drilling, how are you improving, okay, how do I tell if I'm improving, how do I get from A to B. So I would reflect a lot on that, on just basically mirroring regular sports, because there is a difference between being pro and actually being the best, and perhaps being a very, very good player and streaming a lot. For example, I think everyone here basically knows Ninja, right? Started out in Halo and then it goes into Fortnite. I've printed off his results here.
Now, just if anyone's wondering, Misha has been doing AVCon for how long?
From Deputy Games Coordinator from 2016 to 2018.
This is what AVCon will do to you. AVCon will make you prepare. It will make you coordinate. It will make you think of everything.
Never leaves you. Never leaves you.
AVCon will break you as a person and build you up stronger. AVCon 2021, July 25.
So basically, I've got his results printed out here. So second in week 2, North America day 2. 5th in the previous week. 8th in Grand Finals, NA East. And then all the rest are regional stuff that's between top 10 and top 20. Now, I'm not saying at all, I'm not trying to put him down at all. That's already like, you're like really good already at Fortnite at that point, right? But he hasn't competed in international tournaments. So there's a huge power gap between being like in the top 10% and being in the top 2% of players. There is a huge margin of difference. And to cross that gap, cross that bridge in difference is similar to any traditional sports. And I'm actually really happy, Nigel, that you're doing meta high school sports and that universities are getting involved in sports, because you don't go from A to Z or A to G or whatever right away, you know, being no one and then suddenly, you know, competing in the top thing. Clearly you've been in tournaments before, right? And so in traditional sports like footy, you start playing in primary school, then you go to high school, and then you play uni maybe, and then you get into the big leagues. For a long time, that just wasn't a thing in esports at all. You just go and play random pubs online and whatever. But now, because like of meta and all these other things, it's legitimizing sports. So that's, sorry, I know I love talking, can't you tell? Is focusing on legitimizing it as a real sport and mirroring how real sports are treated.
That is a good answer. Go for it.
Actually, to add on to that, I think a really important module, if there was to be an esports course, would be branding. Once you are playing at a professional level, there are a lot of eyes on you, especially if you are playing at a very high level or on one of the top teams. There are some very content-driven orgs who will help you with your branding and obviously will get your name out there. But I think that it's something that all professional players should, content creators and everyone should really know how to make the most of their brand and the time that they get in the spotlight, because if you utilize it well, then if you stop playing professionally or you move on to something else, you still have that name behind you, and it will make the transition into whatever you do from there much easier. So I think understanding branding, understanding what you want your brand to be, all of those sorts of things I think would be a super important part of that as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Branding, like we covered in the first year, huge, because people need to know who you are to hire you. People need to know who you are to give you money and sponsorship. Speaking of South Australia, there's a brilliant program called NICE, the New Enterprise Incentive Scheme, which will teach you how to have a job, how to make your own business as a sole trader. So check that out, SA government. There's a plug for you. But speaking of we're going to go dip into the world of what it's like to be an esporter. And now I'm going to throw it to Jimmy. We're running a little short on time, so... I apologize. No. We learned a lot, and our cred went up. So thank you, my good sir. Jimmy, it's very stressful being an esporter, isn't it?
Yes.
So what would be your recommendation of a stress relief technique? Is it good to have, say, an animal that you can pat and not have to talk about esports to and just give it a cuddle and feel whole? Or is there a good cheat food to have to just really perk up the spirit? What would you recommend to relieve some of the stress and pressure when esporting?
Well, I mean, everyone's different, so different things work for different people. And I'm sorry if I was very doom and gloom before. Obviously, to be involved in esports is amazing, and I enjoy my time with that org so much. But I just think it's important to be careful with what you're going to. But as for stress relief, obviously, yes, it is a very high-pressure job. Last year at Chiefs, we had a house dog, Kiko, who I think I probably got the most joy out of. Maybe, I don't know really how much she contributed to the players' moods, although I don't know, sometimes if they would have bad scrim blocks, they would seek her out because she was just a little ball of sunshine. I think as far as cheat foods, generally eating healthy and keeping a healthy body and healthy mind, as cliche as it sounds, is extremely beneficial to anyone, especially in a high-pressure environment. A lot of the players now are very health conscious, which is great. A lot of them work out. I know a lot of the boys on the team last year, and where they are now, they would go for runs together or go to the gym together and work out. I think, honestly, it's not necessarily for everyone, but I think that is probably the best way, because while you're trying to like beat your running time or like beat your PBs at the gym, you don't really have that much time to think about what you're doing in game or be stressed about it. And then also you get the benefit of being much healthier and happier. So yeah, endorphins. So it's a good thing.
Endorphins are very, very good. Which, now Alisheria, you can go a little longer with this one because it's going to be a hard one to answer. So I'm going to throw it at you. Next financial year, the SA government budget comes out. And this whole time, our politicians talk about how we're the innovation state, we're the land of opportunity. So they'll talk that. But from your thoughts, what program would you like the government to put forward that could enhance esport talent in South Australia? So maybe just a short program that people can join and learn after hours, after work, after school. What would you like to see as an initiative for the future? That is a hard one, I'm sorry.
I will take a moment to ponder that question. I think, as we've kind of touched on across all of us, business in general, and things like branding, the mental health side, I think there's not one clear cut, this is the thing that you need. It is an arrangement of a whole heap of different things. So I think definitely things like branding, business, finance, not extreme levels of finance, but you need to know, I know there's a massive misconception where a lot of people are now phrasing on things like Twitch, it's a tip button, not a donate button. Unless you are a charity, if money is going towards your content, you need to pay tax. It's not just a gift. It is, if it's coming through your stream and is supporting your stream, you do need to pay tax on it. Things like, I think little finessings that kind of don't spring to mind immediately. Things like I have an ABN, an Australian business number, so that if I do work for, like recently I did a panel for the OPL, Utopia, after the OPL finals. I did before the finals, I did a panel on streaming. After finals, there was a group of us that did artwork, that we did streaming, drawing profile pictures on request of different champions and things. So you need an ABN if you're going to be doing contracted work. And that would then, if I'm looking at purchasing things for stream, am I a business? How am I claiming this? What is this used for? It's little things like that that will help the longevity of you making content creation a business. So I think, yeah, definitely branding. One thing as well that I will always recommend, I know it can be a really difficult thing. I know that I really care about my content, and so getting criticism towards it, particularly if it feels unfounded, it can feel very much like a personal attack on what you're doing and how you go about your content. Something from like a mental health perspective that I always recommend is view your interactions. If you're getting whispers on Twitch or you're getting DMs on Twitter and things like that, view it like a business. So if someone's just saying, oh, I hated that stream, I didn't like what you were doing, you can kind of have your default, thank you for your feedback regarding my previous stream, and look at it, hey, this may be just some random person on Twitter, but with your branding and how you stand, do you want to be potentially known as the person that's really volatile and reactionary when people give criticism? Or like, how do you want to be viewed to like the world of gaming and the world of streaming? And again, I know it can be really hard when you think that you've done, this was such a good idea and I think I really executed it, and then you're just having people in chat saying, I hate this a lot. It can be crushing, but unfortunately, as Jimmy was highlighting with what's a good vice for like relieving stress, it's not a one size fits all. So it can be easy to look at the one negative comment, but focus on your community, what your community giving feedback with. And yeah, things like emails, if you're getting business emails, hey, we want to, even as a smaller creator, I get the Instagram messages, I get emails saying, we think that you'd be a great fit for our company. If you buy X amount of stuff, we'll give you a discount, things like that. Handle it professionally. Because if you want your content creation to be your living and be your business, it's just a really good kind of starting point, is responding to things in a business-minded way. Is something that I'd recommend as well. Sorry, kind of off tangent, but it'll kind of fit it into one.
No, you've nailed the answer. Because you've actually brought up a very good point. As a Twitch, as a streamer, as a esporter, you're literally you're import-exporter. You're exporting content and you're importing money. As a South Australian, you could be getting money from America. You could be getting money from Europe. And that money comes from Europe and America to South Australia, which then you have to pay tax on. And that's why we get roads and garbage service, which is really fantastic. But we've struck a really good point here, is streaming, twitching, that's the word now, twitching, esporting, it is a business. And it is a very, very fun and can be a very profitable business. But we have to learn that we have to look at it from a branding, we have to look at it from a marketing point of view, and also a business management point of view. But let's not forget the fun, because we're about to jump to somebody. So hands up again, who was here last year? And keep your hands up if last year you were kind of inspired to give this whole esport thing a go. And hands up if you actually took the plunge, jumped in, and started your own esports branding and became a sponsored esporter. I'm not going to continue. It's Ivan. Ivan, come on down here, buddy. So Ivan, give him a round of applause. So Ivan last year, let's grab the mic there. He came along and he thought, hey, these are some pretty good numbers. I'm already a professional physical racing car driver. What happened next, Ivan?
Well, I was sitting in the audience, and it was a year ago, and it's amazing what happens in a year. I mean, we all think about, what will happen in, the next 365 days, and you sort of think of it as like, wow, that's really looking, long term. But I was in the audience, I was roughly around the middle, I was hearing all the amazing stories, everything that's happening in South Australia, and I realized I'm at an esports summit event in Adelaide, and I actually don't have a gaming PC. So I was sitting there going, right, okay, so first thing, I need a gaming PC. Right, what do I do? How does it work? What do I get? I realized, wow, you can really go from like $500 all the way to $10,000 for a water-cooled system. I'm like, okay, we'll skip that part. I'm not that good yet. I haven't even started. But being someone that drives full-time or drives in general, like I've been racing go-karting since I was 15 years old, there's a thing with real drivers and people that race in real life. They're like, oh, those gamers, like that's not the real stuff. There's no G-force in that particular side of sport. So they don't really see simulator drivers or esport drivers as real drivers. And it was really fascinating because I was actually in that category. And I was like, I'm going to get this gaming PC, get a wheel, and before you know it, I'm going to be winning because, hey, if I'm competitive in real life, I'm going to be competitive in the simulator world. And how wrong was I? So I got this gaming PC. I got a $300 Logitech G29 wheel. Hands up if anybody knows what that is. Awesome. Awesome. So I got this G29 wheel. I plugged it into the TV. I realized that where my pedals and seats and the driver position was sitting was actually about 2.5 meters to that way. So the whole time I was driving and my neck was sort of sitting this way, but I had to make it work because I think one of the things that I want to say tonight is that you got to give things a go and you got to start somewhere, wherever that is, whether it's a $500 PC and a $300 wheel, you got to just get started. And then from there, you can actually evolve and make the decisions to go further in the sport. So, got this wheel. I'm a real driver. I'm feeling good. I plug it into the TV. I get a subscription to iRacing.com. Apparently, I'm a rookie. And I'm like, what? I'm a rookie? What do you mean I'm a rookie? Well, anyways, I get in, I go into a practice session and I'm practicing on my own. I'm like, oh yeah, this feels pretty good. Oh, I feel like I'm driving the car to the limit. Hands up if you ever driven on a game like Xbox or Forza and you thought you were really good. And then you realize you're like 4 seconds off the pace. So that's what happened to me. I got into my first race. I qualified last. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't understand. It was all very weird. I got into the first corner, I got flipped, then I got lapped, then somehow I ended up in the pits because I flew off the track. And before you know it, I was literally shocked. I sat there for about half an hour going, did that just happen? Then I watched the replay and watched how fast the other guys were, and I was sitting there going, nah, they're cheating. It's a setup thing. They got a better setup. They got a better something. And then I walked away, and I actually decided to literally walk away that night, and I started to think. Then I watched the replay. I watched how they were driving, how they were using the pedals and all that, and I realized this is a new world. This is a different world. There's going to be new skills that I have to learn. And as someone who drives in real life, you have to sort of take some of those elements away because now you're driving to the limit every corner, every lap, because you can. Because you don't. If you hit the wall, doesn't matter. You can restart and go again. So I came back 2 days later. I actually won my first race because I dropped all the things that I had learned in real life and learned how to be a real simulator driver. From there, the journey of the last 12 months, I've now gone into A grade on iRacing. I'm competing on multiple streams on a weekly basis. I have a Monday night racing league that gets streamed. That gets about a 1,000 to 1,600 viewership every week in a little MX-5 car. 4 people going wide into turn 1. It's super, super fun. And now, as I think, okay, well, where do I want to be this time next year when I come back and talk, what happened the following year? And what I'm interested in is how do we turn simulator drivers into real car drivers? How do we find the world's fastest, Australia's fastest sim racer, and then put them into opportunities? How do we get kids off the road speeding and get them into simulators? How do we develop their other skills? Because when you're competing in a simulator, as much as people think that race car drivers are just lunatics that drive really fast for whatever reason, there's actually a lot of other skills involved. There's a lot of tactic, there's a lot of concentration involved, there's hand-eye coordination, like with the pedals, the pressure. So there's a lot of those things. So for me now, I'm at a level where I'm fast. I'm probably in that 10%, maybe 5% category, not at the 1%ers yet. I'm about half a second off the aliens. But really for me now, it's about how do we bridge the gap between real and simulator? How do we give more people a shot? And how do we actually, it would be really cool if I can be involved in any capacity to actually reduce the accidents on our roads by getting people to stop doing stupid things on the road and actually come and compete against people that are actually really good. Because I can tell you now, anybody who goes down the road, shoots their car at 110 and thinks they're cool, if they come to a real racetrack, they'll really learn what it's like to actually drive a vehicle and learn how to handle a vehicle. So thank you. Really, really appreciate it. And I can't wait to come back next year.
No, I can't wait to hear more of your journey because you've jumped that mental hurdle. It's like, oh, wait. I can hit the side and I'm not going to break my leg.
Yeah.
You can go full hog. So actually, is that what you'd say would be the biggest difference from simulation to real life, is that you can just go all out?
So the biggest difference is generally the races are about 40 minutes, so on a simulator race. So it's not too long, compared to some other esports games. But the difference is that for those 40 minutes, you are at the limit every minute of every lap of every corner. And that's what the aliens are able to do. So they're able to hit the apex, hit the corner exit well, have a car 500 tenths of a second right behind you, not lose concentration. Whereas in real life, we have other hurdles to play. There's weather, there's different effects, there's the race weekend, races get cancelled, races, get brought forward. There are other elements. You don't get to practice as much. That's one thing that I learned was really cool. I was like, wow, I'm competing against the best people, and we get to do it every night. We don't just do it on a weekend 3 weeks from now. But I think the highlight for me, that has, over the last 12 months, has been when COVID hit, the Formula One drivers all got handed simulators. And they were all driving. And I was driving in a particular GT3 session with a Ferrari. I'm Italian. I had to drive Ferrari. It's just one of those things. But I was driving, and then during this practice session, it was 15 minutes to go, and I'm like, oh, I'm in third position in this practice session. Oh, I recognize that name in fourth. I'm like, hang on a minute. Pause. Google search. Oh, right. Okay. So it's Roman Grosjean, Formula One driver of Haas. And I actually then put the mic on and said, "Hi, Grosjean, how are you finding iRacing?" So at the end of that session, like the last 15 minutes, we were all going hammer, trying to get the best time because we all want to beat Grosjean. And I actually bet him by 68 thousandths of a second.
Wow. That's in sport, that's the difference between winning and losing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I told him. And then I screenshotted it, and then I sent it to his Instagram page. And today it is my highlight of my racing career, real or simulator. And we do. Every time I see him on TV, I'm like, just you remember me.
You have a bond now.
I'm in Adelaide. You know my name, but
Well, we might get the Grand Prix back to Adelaide now, so you never know.
Yes.
You never know. And we've got there's a big push now to bring Formula 1 to Adelaide.
Yes.
So keep trying because you might meet him in a pub.
We might.
Yeah.
We may meet.
And they may have the Daytona 500 set up, and that's where it's down. That little arcade. That's what's happening.
It's going to happen. I feel that him and I are due for a rematch. So if you are watching Grosjean, we would like to do it again. It was Barcelona, the racetrack, by the way. It would be nice, but I mean, how cool that in 2020 you can be in your home in Adelaide on your simulator. That's not sponsored by your Formula 1 team. And you can be competing against people from all over the world. All the elements of racing exist in the simulator. The physics, the tires, the compound, the track temperature, wind, everything is there. The only thing that we're missing is that G-force element and the risk element. But everything else is there. So if an 8-year-old came to me today and said, "Hey, I want to progress in motorsport," I would actually go through the esport avenue, then going to your local go-kart club and getting a go-kart and getting a trailer and just competing against 8 juniors or 9 juniors compared to competing against people from all over the world every single night. You develop your skills further and then put them into a real race car.
That's perfect. Well, thank you very much, Ivan.
Thank you.
We look forward to 12 months to see where you are there. And
Thank
who
you.
you're going to beat in 12 months.
Let's see.
Let's see. Brilliant. Thank you very much. And bringing forward those opportunities is what esports is all about. That's a very awesome and fun experience. So let's start a league. Let's start a league in Adelaide Uni. And in fact, so and behold, we have Tom here from the Adelaide Uni Esport League. But what's the full name there, Tom? Come on down. So Tom, let's bring down some people to talk about your own initiative in the state of innovation.
Yeah, well, a bit hard to follow someone versing Sebastian Grosjean in a race. But so my name's Tom. I'm from Adelaide University Sport, and to give you my background in e-gaming really is I started when I was about 14, 15 years old, and I always hold it as my little secret brag is that I won the state 2v2 and 4v4 Halo 2 competition. So that's my background as the biggest sporting person ever. I did come originally from the esports market. These days not so much. It's sort of somewhat going over my head, but it's funny how you go sort of 180 and now I'm back into the game somewhat. So last year I was lucky enough to do a trip with work that I ended up in the United States and was looking at quite a few of the colleges all across America and seeing what sort of facilities they had, and amazing that esports had sort of started growing across there, and I thought why not do something very similar when coming back to Australia. And I've been lucky enough recently to sort of slowly be making my way through and working quite closely with our League of Legends club from the union. So we're slowly progressing that to an esports club. So I've got a few members here that if you want to stand up and say hello to everyone. If you do want to talk later, they'll be here and happy to discuss the club that we're putting forward. But about a month ago, we were lucky to get a grant from the university to sort of fit out a location here at the university. So we're slowly in talks with the engineering faculty just across from us to build a facility. So that's a pretty exciting thing that's never been done here at the University of Adelaide. So very exciting times to be involved in esports, and hopefully we do grow from not just a League of Legends but other esports across the gaming sort of spectrum. So we'll see how we go.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much there, Tom. So, actually, what's the easiest way for somebody to get in touch with yourself and your initiative?
Well, it's a very good question, and that's how early in the time we are, really. So I'm working with the guys here to sort of build that. So we've got an IGM in a couple of weeks' time, which is the inaugural general meeting, and from there we're going to start to build the club. So once the guys have just set up a Facebook group, which will go live in a couple of weeks' time. Again, come speak to us later. But I think it's eSport or Adelaide Uni Esports. Adelaide Uni Esports. So in maybe a couple of weeks' time, sort of jump on to Facebook, have a look for them, and they'll be able to answer any of your questions, and we'll have an email as well set up.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Tom. I'll grab that because, big round of applause. We've had some amazing insight, amazing questions answered here, but we'd like to open up to the audience. So is anybody in the audience like to have a question for one of our panelists up here? Here we go. Oh, that'd be brilliant. Thank you. So, gentleman in the red beanie.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
So, a lot of you have talked about esports, but obviously we need viewers to be able to support those that perform. Where can people find most of the players that are now in leagues such as League of Legends and some of the ones that Adelaide want to get into? Maybe perhaps some links or perhaps maybe some direction on where you guys can be found.
Yeah, so I think you're asking where do you find the players? Is that what you're asking?
So you guys run
teams?
Legacy Esports, yeah, and you compete against the other teams, yeah.
Yeah.
You're in the OPLs, yeah, which means that you guys are on what channel?
Yeah, pretty much Twitter is the gaming channel of choice for gamers. So you can follow most of the teams and players and streamers on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch. Some of the aliases are sometimes challenging to try and track down, but you generally get there. But if you go to the websites, if you go to the Legacy Esports website, usually you can track through and find the relevant players or teams through those sites.
Brilliant.
So I also have an answer for that, and I don't need to. Well, actually, one of the screenshots is from the website. So personally, when in part of my research, when I was tracking down and trying to find the Twitch channels of all these different players, I personally there are equivalents of Wikipedia specifically around esports. The one that I trust the most is Liquipedia, which is named after Team Liquid, the esports team. And yeah, they have Wikipedia articles about all these different players, and they have all the different links to all their socials and things they do. That includes ESEA profiles, Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, even sometimes the ESL profiles. So if you really sort of on square one, not sure where to go, just either go to the team itself or to Liquipedia or something like that, or even Let's Play Live or some of the local tournaments. They should have some information as well.
Brilliant. Another.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask Nigel, without sort of getting too much confidential information, what sort of business investment have the Crows put into their Legacy League, and what sort of financial model are you trying to sort of get to in 2 or 3 years? Is it a highly profitable model, or is it just a PR investment? Or there's a lot of time and effort seems to be going into it. You're ramping it up. Is it a financial model that other people should aspire to?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because esports teams around the world, especially a lot of the big ones, have raised capital, but they're still trying to work out how to monetize and turn over a profit. So at the moment, the answer to your question is primarily, it won't go into the investment of acquisition, but for Meta, that's a startup. We basically built that, and that's running cash flow positive. The teams area is probably cash flow negative, and overall we're running a break-even esports venture after about 2 years, which is kind of unseen of in terms of globally. So we're doing okay. From a valuation point of view, that's always subjective. Okay, startups probably have a value of about 10 times. The value is just a subjective line in the sand, because these aren't necessarily super profitable businesses at this point in time, but they do have value. For me and for the club, I view it as they've taken a step in terms of this direction. It's a really crucial time about, do they take a step back or do they take a step forward? Taking the step forward could be highly, highly valuable, and that's the probably the decisions that the club has to make over the next period of time of how do they want to play out esports into the future, given the circumstances of the club wanting to really position strongly a focus on the AFL and the AFL core product. Does that answer your question?
Brilliant. Now, because we've learnt so much, we've gone a little over time, so we've got time for one more question. That being said, informal questions, you can find these guys on Twitter.
Yeah, even after the event, if you want to ask any questions, we're free to
brilliant
answer them.
No worries. And up the back.
Hi, how are you going? How important is mobile gaming at the moment for esports?
Check my notes again. So in terms of mobile gaming, Australia, from what I've seen, doesn't really have that much of a scene for that. Part of that is mostly because the culture and the infrastructure just isn't here in terms of half-assed the internet can be. There are certainly still players here who play like Vein of Glory or some of the MOBAs there. Call of Duty Mobile is out. I'm not sure if that has esports. And that sort of mobile gaming in esports is something I've mostly seen in Singapore and Southeast Asia, and that's just both in just the culture of how people approach gaming overall there, and also just in just they have the infrastructure there. Their internet is miles ahead of Australia's. So if you're looking to get into mobile sports, I haven't seen anything personally that's available right now. I think there might have been a Clash of Clans thing or something like that somewhere. But if there isn't one happening right now, the approach that I took when I was making the UniSA club is if there's not one there now, then why not make it yourself? That's the approach that I had. So it's not necessarily all doom and gloom. It's not going to be here ever because it's not here already. I believe that it's assuming everything is going fine for you right now, especially in these times, you have the capacity to make that happen here as well. But again, the infrastructure, there's a whole other technology sector thing going on that's above all our heads, that some things just might not become a reality in Australia, unfortunately, which is also a point earlier that I made is why players move to different countries like South Korea or America, because that's where the good players are.
I think as well in terms of a content creation perspective, that is definitely something that there's probably more room for the market like at the moment. Gaming in general is a lot of developers are looking at maximizing time that people have to play their games. A big example at the moment is Teamfight Tactics, which is the League of Legends auto chess. That is something that is available, and they have servers here that you can play mobile because they're wanting to. A lot of developers are wanting to get in on that on your commute home from work, and particularly so many people are so busy. That's something in terms of gaming in general. That is something that is they're trying to get a foot in the door in that market. So from there, you will see there is potential sponsorship opportunities from developers that are wanting streamers to promote that you can play games on mobile. So we may not have presently tournament structures for mobile gaming, but there definitely is. Mobile gaming is a massive emphasis. Wild Rift as well. I know very League orientated. I play a lot of League of Legends, but that as well, there have been big strides to bring that forward. That's in closed beta at the moment. So it is something that you can stream directly from your phone. No, you will not have a face cam necessarily. You won't have the full setup, but that's something that can be a great way to get your foot in the door in streaming. Is you can stream directly off an iPad or like a tablet or a phone. You can stream artwork directly off if you're doing, I know Catroulette has done art streams from her iPad using Procreate. So it is something that competitively, maybe not so much now, but it is definitely something to keep in mind in terms of content creation and streaming.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, guys. Unfortunately, we do have to close off there because our live stream has gone to the very end of our allocated time. We'll be here for informal questions, but I'm going to pop you over to Professor Tom, the Director of Creative Revolutionaries and the Sia Foundation. Tom, wonderful night.
Thank you. Last year was good, but this year was even more interesting. The content was amazing. So thank you so much for your participation, and thank you all for your participation, and look forward to doing it next year again. So please thank the panelists and the experts, and we'll see you next year.